Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cougar Dash. I'm Cody Sheeler here with Ryan Root as always, and today we're going to be talking about some WSU basketball as opposed to football as we've been doing lately because there's been some really big news when it comes to the Cougar basketball program. So I'm going to let you, Ryan, go ahead and lead it off and just, I'll let you bring it up and I'll let you talk about it and give me your take. So go ahead.
Well, I'm really excited for the basketball program. They just signed what seems to be their best recruit in program history. In Mouhamed Gueye, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He's a 6'11" power forward that honestly makes FA just look like an athlete and not necessarily like a basketball, prospect coming up at himself. But like Mouhamed Gueye, his athleticism is already there. He's 6'11", so he's already taller than FA. He's got a similar bounce to him, but the guy can handle the ball almost kind of like an Evan Mobley sort of player. I mean, that's kind of the best comp I can give Mouhamed, like right out the gate, is he's a lot like Evan Mobley in terms of sort of like his untapped potential, I think, and his offensive prowess. I mean, he's got an outside shot already, which FA kind of had a little bit in the season that went through like a dry spell for I don't know how many consecutive three-pointers, but this guy seems to have a shot down. He's got great athleticism, and just the ball movement that he has in transition I've seen has been really well. But I think this is a huge sign, not only for the roster that's already there, but also the fact that it's just going to expand this, like the talent that's going to be on offense every single game, not just with Noah or Andre Yakimovsky or even Deshaun Jackson. We could be looking at a guy who could be bringing up the ball for WSU, which I think is insane for a 6'11" guy.
Yeah. And I mean, like you kind of mentioned with him being a great recruit, I believe he is the highest rated recruit in WSU history, which is
higher than Clay and higher than Andre.
I was going to say, when you get your name in the Clay Thompson conversation, I as WSU fans know, he is, I mean, God when it comes to Cougar basketball, as the only player to have really done and not done anything but to, be a star at the next level. Like, he is in rarefied air of like, he's the guy. And so you get your name in that conversation, that's already a huge thing. And I mean, this is, I believe Gueye was a top 40 guy recruit, which, I mean, this could be the first one and done, I believe, in WSU. I don't want to say WSU history, but at least, I mean, since the whole one and done revolution of whatever the past decade. I mean, Clay Thompson was here for 3 years, and so this could be a one and done guy. I obviously don't know. He may end up sticking around because top 40 is still a lot of players. But I mean, this just shows the type of the fact that they could get this type of talent is just absolutely insane. And we've seen the good recruiting classes that Kyle Smith has gotten. Andre Yakimovsky was the number 2, number 3 recruit or whatever, but this is a guy from North Macedonia that wasn't really heavily recruited. So it's more finding a diamond in the rough as opposed to winning a recruiting battle, and then you get some of these other guys that are great for WSU, high recruits, Deshaun Jackson, Jefferson Koulibaly, guys like that. But so it's more of for them, it was more of, all right, we're starting to get better guys. But with this, it's now they're starting to recruit. They're starting to get guys that can really go other places, not just in the Pac-12. I don't know what other offers that Gueye had, but I mean, this is a dude who probably could have gone to a handful of places that you would think would be better than WSU. So it really, justifies what Kyle Smith is doing and creating a program that people want to play in. And there's not really a downside. When it comes to, professional levels and whether you're drafting a guy high or signing a big free agent, there are downsides to it. But when you're recruiting in college, there's really not a lot of downside to it. I mean, if he's great, then that's amazing. If he, struggles or whatever, that's not really the end of the world. But I mean, this is an incredible talent. And I mean, like you said, it can, it's going to be huge for this team.
It's going to be huge for numerous reasons, but just kind of what you were saying about the recruiting aspect of it all. I mean, the fact that we're going into Kyle Smith's third season with WSU, and we've had, I guess, record-breaking prospects for the past 2 seasons with Andre and now with Mouhamed. It's got to speak wonders for when I was checking out Mouhamed's profile on 24/7 Sports, I saw he had offers from Kansas, he had offers from UCLA, but then he commits to WSU. And I also saw he said one of the deciding factors for choosing WSU was they were real with me. They were honest with me, which that's not the first time that Kyle Smith and his recruiting staff has been complimented with that before. It was the same thing with Noah Williams. It's the same thing with Deshaun Jackson. And his recruiting is paying off so well, not even just for prospects coming up, but even in the transfer market as well. I mean, they just got the guy from Eastern. They got the guy from JUCO that I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the sharpshooter point guard.
Tyrell Roberts.
Yes.
And then they got the other guy from South Alabama or whatever.
Yep.
So they're really
he came from I think it is South Alabama, one of those Sun Belt teams like they play in the Sun Belt, right? Yeah, so
something like that.
I mean, with all those transfers and just the recruits coming in, not only this year but with last, I mean, it's now starting to look more and more like Kyle Smith's team. I think everybody on this team, except for Jas Kuntz, and he just left, was a part of the previous era of WSU basketball. Now we're all with Kyle Smith's roster. And that going forward is going to push them past a lot of people's expectations going into the Pac-12. Pac-12 is going to have a mountain of expectations going into this next year just off of the NCAA tournament alone. I mean, UCLA is going to look like a nationally recognized team. Oregon's going to look great. Oregon State, I mean, shocked everybody. So WSU, although it may seem like we were going to keep going down the ladder a little bit more, now with Mouhamed Gueye, we go right back up into the ladder, right back into contention, and Kyle Smith's philosophy just keeps pushing through with this roster. But it works in so many different ways. But just competing with the other teams, I think, is going to be the biggest effect you see of this.
Yeah, and it's important to not understate what this means for WSU because getting a recruit like this is a bigger deal for WSU than for most places because, for one, it's Pullman, which is, I mean, it can only be a negative. There's no draw to that. It's not a team that has been historically successful in the last 10 years or the last even 50 years. It's not a team like UCLA that's been good, but they still have the historical relevance of the 70s and all that stuff, and it's not a team with exceptional facilities or that reason, Kansas, other than being good, they've got world-class facilities and stuff. So getting a guy that good it's all on the program and on Kyle Smith and what he's done because there's no other reason to come to Pullman other than Kyle Smith and the team and the culture that he's created. So the biggest thing is just to show that, he's fully recruiting these guys based on the team. There's really no other reason, and sure, maybe Mouhamed Gueye wouldn't have been a starter at Kansas or, maybe or whatever, but he could have gone there and he could have played there and he could have played at a lot of other places. But Kyle Smith won him over with basketball, not with anything else. I guarantee you there's no boosters paying him under the table. WSU is surely not doing that because they barely have enough money to pay their own freaking athletic department. So, he won him over with basketball. And when you do that, you can, I don't want to say everybody, but you can start doing that, more and more. I mean, why can't WSU go to these big prospects in Seattle and get those guys to come here instead of UW at this point? I mean, there's clearly something here, and Mouhamed Gueye is just, I mean, the guys before him have started it, but I think this is, I don't think they're going to be signing 5-star guys every year, but they have now shown they can get better prospects than we even thought.
I mean, scouting in Seattle, I mean, it certainly is important for WSU going forward because there actually is somewhat of a rivalry between both teams going forward. UW and WSU sort of have a good rivalry again in basketball, especially with this last year. But talking about WSU and progressing into the next year, we have assistant coach Jim Shaw was just promoted to the associate head coach position right there alongside with Kyle Smith. It's not assistant to the regional manager, I don't believe. I think it's a little more glamorous than that. But this promotion, I think, means a lot more than people may think, because Jim Shaw came up here with Kyle Smith when Kyle Smith was first brought on. Him and oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name. What's the other assistant coach's name? Oh my goodness, I've talked to the guy. Oh my goodness,
I couldn't help you here.
This is irritating me.
It's not Derek Phelps, is it?
It is Derek Phelps.
Okay,
yes.
Derek Phelps. Yeah, that's the only other one that I know.
He's the guy who double teamed Chris Webber in the national title game. He's very proud of that, or not proud. He's very kind of like, oh yeah, it kind of happened. I'm like, you destroyed the Fab Five. Like, do you not? But Jim Shaw being promoted, I mean, I believe before he came up to WSU, he was at Eastern Oregon, I want to say, and he had a lot of success in D2. But this just kind of shows Kyle Smith's relationship with the staff and how it's building on top of itself. I mean, I'm not going to pronounce his name right, but John Andrzejczyk, or like Andrew, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Has a great presence on social media, and his, Canadian roots kind of played a part in the Jefferson Coulibaly, recruiting process. And there's a lot of people that are showing Kyle Smith's knowledge with how he brought his staff along with him. I mean, Derek Phelps was with him at University of San Fran, and previously at the Ivy League school that they coached at. I forgot what it was, but
Pepperdine.
No, sheesh. You think I'd be more knowledgeable about this off the top of my head. But, I mean, what do you think initially about Jim Shaw being associate head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think what this represents more than, I don't know much about the assistant coaches on this team, as most people don't. I don't know about the assistant coaches on really any team, but I think they are a huge part of the success that people don't know about. I mean, we've seen just this past offseason of Gonzaga's assistant coach getting the job at Arizona, and I think that brought to light just how important he was to that Gonzaga program. And so the fact that, I think this shows that just the trust in the coaching staff that he has, and the fact that it's going well. If things were happening or were struggling, Kyle to make changes. If he wasn't satisfied with what was going on, that is where these things would happen. So the fact that he's not only sticking to them, but promoting them and, further just solidifying his commitment to these guys, I think is huge. And, it's got to mean that whatever his job has been with the team, that he's doing it well. And, a school like WSU, is a, we talked about it with Pat Chun, but it's kind of a breeding ground for the next step in a way. Kyle Smith, I mean, we saw it with, Tony Bennett, but, Kyle Smith, there's a chance if he was doing amazing, there's a chance he could get poached away. And the same with these assistants, what's to say University of San Francisco, if they don't like what's going on there, they grab a guy like this. So I think just, committing to this team and keeping this core together, because I mean, going into year 3 is still really early, and so it's important to kind of continue what you're doing and to go forward. So it's always good to see something like this, because when you see guys getting hired, when you see a guy getting hired, it means that somebody else was doing a bad job usually. So I mean, the fact that everybody's sticking around and that it means it's going right, and it's a good thing, even more than we can really understand, because obviously I can't evaluate how well an assistant coach is doing, but Kyle Smith can, and he certainly likes what he has been seeing.
From what I've seen of Coach Shaw, I know that he was going to step in as the head coach at the very, very beginning of the season when Kyle Smith had COVID. Kyle Smith, of course, came back and ended up coaching that first game of the season. He cleared to come in and actually coach the game. But Jim Shaw stepping in as the head coach, I remember talking with Jazz Kuntz before the season started. And I was talking to him about, how's practice been with, Coach Shaw kind of running things. Not only did he say Kyle Smith has been keeping contact with the team very regularly, whether it be someone holding up a laptop or something facing the team. But Coach Shaw, when he stepped in, he said going into the first game that they got to be dogs. They can't be cats, is what they said. Or you got to be like dogs in the doghouse. Like the streets are like real is kind of what he was talking about. And I'm like, this is kind of intense. Like he's saying, go into these games and you got to go in aggressive. You got to go in relentless. And he's a very defensive minded coach. And we all know Kyle Smith loves defense. And there's a lot of great defensive talent on this team. And Coach Shaw's defensive mind, I think, played a part into that promotion. I know Coach Phelps is more of kind of like a guard. Well, he was formerly a guard. He's been kind of working with Bonton and Williams, along the way. But Jim Shaw is definitely a defensive-minded coach, and I think that's going to play a huge part in going into next season. I personally think, Jim Shaw and Coach Phelps, coaching alongside Kyle Smith, I personally think that's going to last a great deal. I don't think we're going to see, an assistant coach head out, 2-3 years from now. If they get an opportunity to coach, I don't want to say Duke, but if they get an opportunity to coach, like Boise State, or they get an opportunity to coach, a non-Power 5 D1 program, I'm sure they probably take it. But I personally think this group's going to hang around for a while. I don't know about you, but I don't see a reason to sort of disband this coaching staff when it almost feels like WSU's just getting started in like postseason play. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So no, I don't. I'm not saying that I think that's going to happen or expect that to happen, but I think Kyle Smith is making a commitment to them as well, and obviously he wants the best for them. And if a job comes around at some point, I'm sure they will take it. But I think so. They're just as bought in as Kyle Smith is, and they want to see this program succeed just the same as he does, and they're committed to that, and they want that to happen, and they're doing their part. So I think that's the big thing. It's just obviously Kyle Smith is going to be the face of it, and that's who you're going to see on the court and talking in the press conferences after the game. But I'm sure if you ask him, he would attribute a lot of success to these guys as well. They're kind of like the offensive linemen of a coaching staff. You don't see the offensive linemen make plays, to use a football analogy on our basketball show, but you don't see offensive linemen making plays, but they're vital to the offense running. And so I think that's kind of like what these guys are, and they have their roles and they slot in and they do them well, and that all makes one cohesive unit that is having success. It's not the a Duke fan wouldn't say that WSU is succeeding, but WSU fans would surely say that WSU is succeeding. So I think that's the biggest thing. And so I'm excited to see that continue, because I think this is just a commitment to continuing this trend going forward.
And aside from hearing what Jim Shaw how Jim Shaw has affected the team, I can tell you right now from going to a handful of practices, not this last year, but in Kyle Smith's first year, other than Kyle Smith being the most intense coach during practice, Jim Shaw's right there next to him. Coach Shaw's kind of silent during the games, and he'll kind of call out certain things if he sees them. And if anything, Kyle Smith is the most animated on the sideline.
Well, we've seen that from the 2 to 3 mask spikes that he did every game.
He loved to destroy those masks.
Yeah.
He knew that another one would just come right in and would just reload. But Coach Shaw in practice was very, very intense every time that I attended practice. And it obviously is, it's obviously worked to a certain degree with how the defense has performed. But I think Coach Shaw, being the associate head coach, this just proves trust in his system and in his coaching style. But going into a broader sort of topic, if you will, I mean, the ceiling for WSU basketball going into 2021, you said it earlier, it has been over a decade since WSU has made the NCAA tournament. It was quite a long time since WSU won a Pac-12 tournament game, other than, 2 years ago when they beat out Colorado and WSU was declared the national champions, because that was the last Division I basketball game they had. But anyways, and then this last year they lost to Arizona State, right?
Yes.
First round of the Pac-12 tournament? Yeah. I believe so.
Yeah, the rematch. Remy Martin.
Yes. So not a lot of postseason success, but having Mouhamed Gueye join the team, having Coach Shaw promoted, and just all the transfers and recruits and everything kind of coming in, how is WSU basketball going to fare in 2021?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think you have to put kind of the lack of postseason success last year kind of in context, because I can't remember exactly, but either Isaac Bonton didn't play or he wasn't fully healthy for that game because he kind of got banged up at the end. So,
and I also want to put out there real fast, WSU got an invitation for the NIT, but declined it, I believe.
Yeah.
So they had an opportunity, but yes.
Yeah. This team was not playing at its peak at the end of the year, which, yes, happens. But, it's such a weird season. It's going to happen. But, I mean, I think if you look at the regular season, I think that is kind of the blueprint again. I mean, they were over 500, I believe, which was a big deal. And so I think that's the starting ground for that, is they have to do that again. Obviously, I think this is going to be a very interesting year. I don't know if Bonton has officially said anything.
Isn't that the most confusing thing in the world? Trying to go through his announcements and tweets.
I'm really confident that he's not coming back, just from kind of his posturing and what he's saying. I know he said, announced yesterday on social media that he did graduate, which congratulations to him. But then the fact that they went out and they got 2, scoring guards in the transfer market. So I think that kind of all points to the fact that Bonton will not be coming back, which, is unfortunate, but the team is still succeed around him. So that's a big thing. But it's going to be a weird year because there's going to be a lot of new pieces. Like I said, a lot of transfers coming in, which are guys that are probably going to play right away. And so, you're going to have to be finding, chemistry and just how that'll work. Add in Gueye, who's going to be slotting into a front court with Deshaun Jackson and F.A. Abagidi. So you've got moving pieces. Koulibaly obviously coming back. But I think this should be a team that goes 5, especially if what Noah Williams did last year was legit and he continues that, and he can be kind of the star of this team next year, which is the one thing that they're kind of missing right now. We thought they were, questions about that last year, filling CJ Ellaby's role. But they're going to need somebody to be that star that, Bonton really was. But yeah, I mean, this should be a team that wins more games than it loses. And then, I mean, when it comes to tournament time, it's time to do something. I mean, Oregon State made a run, and there's nothing that could, WSU could have done that exact same thing. They were in that, they beat Oregon State once, almost beat them another time. But I think the Pac-12 will be a little more competitive. I think UCLA really, they played to their highest potential last year, and they'll be good. Oregon obviously is always good. USC will retool, losing Mobley, and it'll be competitive. So I don't think that WSU is going to be a powerhouse in the conference, but they absolutely should be, have a winning record, and they should, be 8th to 5th, maybe somewhere in that range, depending on, what team surprises, what team doesn't. But I mean, this is a team that a few years ago was, I don't know if they were last, but they sure as hell seemed like they were last. They were. You had no idea
where Cal might have been last a couple of times.
I mean, it was,
and the WSU was 11th or something.
Yeah, they were 11th or 12th, seemingly, each time. But I mean, this is a team that's certainly gone up from there, and we knew this wasn't going to be a 1-year turnaround or a 2-year turnaround or even a 3-year turnaround. This was going to be a longer kind of rebuild, so to speak, for Kyle Smith. And so, we're not at the end of that yet, but we're certainly, in a much better spot than we were a few years ago.
You talked a little bit about the Pac-12 kind of competition that's going to be going into this next season, and that's surely evident just with Oregon State and UCLA alone, I think. But just like you said, with USC and Stanford, even Utah has a little bit of something going on, and Colorado still, don't ever forget about Colorado, right? So there's a lot of competitive teams going into the next year, and we may or may not, I don't know if Remy Martin is declared. I don't think he has.
He entered the transfer portal.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
That sucks for ASU. But anyways, going into this next year, I think going off of what I said earlier about it being Kyle Smith's team more so now, I mean, Jazz Coons, I think, was the last person in the Ernie Kent era. This is now Kyle Smith's team, and it could be Kyle Smith's team that he's recruited all of as well, because other than, I don't know who was committed to WSU before Kyle Smith kind of went there, but this feels more like Kyle Smith's team, but on top of it, it kind of feels more like a typical college basketball team. A very exciting young group of guys going around, moving the ball around, shooting threes, making great plays on the defensive end. It feels like a college basketball team more so than it did in the Ernie Kent era, which was give it to Robert Franks and get out of the way.
And
give it to CJ LB. Yeah, give it to CJ LB or Bonton because we need the points, and then we'll make up for it on defense, and then we'll win a game in the 50s or 60s. Going into this next year, Noah Williams seems like that number one option on offense. That number two option is really up for debate, because it could be Andre, it could be Deshaun, it could be F.A., it could be Mouhamed Gueye for all we know. There are so many different people on this team that have the ability to score, and then you have all of the, kind of 3-and-D pieces on this team, like DJ Rodman, Ryan Rapp's another great defender. There's so many different elements to this team now where everyone's playing a specific role or multiple roles, that it makes them more dynamic in these games. It makes them more dynamic against the UCLA, so they don't lose by 30. They could maybe win by 5 or lose by 5, Staying in competition with these teams just based off of the energy and the chemistry alone, I think is going to prove it's definitely going to prove itself going into 2021. I predict an over 500 season, probably predict a slightly better conference record. And then as far as the seeding, like you said, 5 through 8, I'm going to stay in that range, but I'd probably say low end, I'd probably go 7. High end, I guess I'll just take 5, but I could see 7 as the lowest that they'll go.
Yeah. And I mean, the guys you forgot to mention were the transfer guards they got. I believe the one from
there's just so many.
The one from San Diego, I believe, is Tyrell Roberts. And I'm forgetting about the other guy the other guy was a scorer last year. So, I mean, the thing that they really lacked last year was guys who could guys who could score and create their own shots. Deshaun was great in the post. F.A. could finish lobs, but aside from Bonton, and then when he was out, Noah Williams showed it in flashes, but they didn't have those guys that could score. So I think if not both of them, one of those guys is going to be huge in that type of role. And I think I don't know Mouhamed Gueye's game, but he'll certainly be the most talented player on the team. And
I'm telling you, it's going to change the entire view of WSU basketball, because just seeing the brief highlights I've seen, it's crazy.
And so I think what is going to define this team and define their success is which guy makes the leap. Because right now I look at it, let's say Noah Williams has made that leap and he'll score, I think he was 12 points per game last year. Let's say he gets to 15, around there. Not a great, not, a leading scorer, but can get his shots, shoots threes well. And, let's say one of the transfers can score 18 like Bonton did. Who's going to make that next step up? Because they've got a lot of guys that I think slot perfectly well as role players and can do a handful of things right, whether it's 3-and-D, whether it's, rim running and finishing like Abigidi. But who's going to take the step forward and be an all-around complete player that can get double digits, 20 points, a night, and really contribute? Because that's what is going to be. They're going to need 3 go-to just bona fide stars, not in superstars, but guys like that. And then they've got the players around them, but they have too many role players and not enough, lead players right now. So that's what's going to define this team, and that's what their success is going to be measured by.
So are we going to NCAA tournament berth or no?
I think an NCAA tournament berth will still be necessitated by Pac-12 tournament win.
Probably so. I would agree.
But they're getting closer.
Yeah, they're getting closer, but hopefully we get to see it sooner or later. But I think that's all the time that we. I think that might be all the time that we have. Do you mind closing out for us, Cody?
So remember to check out Sports Pack 12 to find some articles written by some Dash Sports hosts, and then remember to check out Dash Sports TV on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Check out our website, dashsports.tv, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Dash Sports, where you can find all of our shows and clips. And you can catch us at the same time next week, 1 p.m. on Thursday. And remember to check out NFL Dash. There's an episode up on YouTube right now, and there will be more. There will be another one coming next week. And as always, go Cougs.